There were 4 major updates released by DJI last week, and one of them affected the Mini 3 Pro, bringing some really useful new features that are very easy to miss. So today, a very quick video on how to update, get the latest firmware, and what it actually brings to the table. I'm talking about firmware update 1.00.0400, and it was released alongside updates to the Air 2S and also the RC controller, which now allows you to control the Air 2S with this remote, which I think is absolutely a brilliant upgrade. And I did a quick video on that. As ever, I will do a little link up there. But look, the update to the Mini 3 Pro brought some major improvements to the camera functions that brings it even closer to matching what the Mavic 3 and the Air 2S can do in terms of functionality, which I think is just brilliant. First off though, one of the things this update also brings for our friends in the US, it brings irrevocable remote ID functionality. It comes into force next year. It doesn't affect flights made outside the US, but it is a mandatory requirement coming into force in the US, so I'm not sure there's much that people can do about it. But look, what I want to focus on today is the improvements that this update brings to the camera functions. So before I do that, probably a good idea just to make sure you've actually got the latest update. It should actually appear automatically if your remote is connected to the internet via your home Wi-Fi or your phone's hotspot. It should appear as a little prompt on the initial home screen for you. Let it download from the internet, update to the drone. Normally takes about 5 to 10 minutes depending on your internet speed. It may reset some of the camera settings as well, especially as there is also a remote firmware update that's been released at the same time. So to be clear, if you've got the Mini 3 Pro, you will see 2 separate updates, one for the remote and one for the drone itself. Now, if you don't see it automatically, then make sure your remote is on and the drone is on, and make sure you've actually got Wi-Fi enabled. You drag the top of the screen down and you have to tap that little Wi-Fi button. And if necessary, you've got to tap the little spanner nut icon and go into the network settings to connect to your Wi-Fi or your hotspot. Once you've done that, making sure the drone is on and connected, as I said, go into the main settings of the drone, tap the 3 dots on the top right, go across to About, and then scroll down to Firmware, where you can see that little blue link to check for updates. Tap that and it will check and automatically download the firmware updates for you. And remember, as I said, there are 2, one for the remote and one for the drone. So once that is all done, you will see a few new functions, namely shutter priority and ISO priority, along with a few other improvements like allowing master shots to be used in portrait mode, and also you can now adjust the sharpness and noise reduction. But it is the shutter and ISO priority that you could very easily skip over. But this is actually what I wanted to quickly talk about, as it is such a useful function for getting tremendous sunrise and sunset shots like these. Also, especially if you are using ND filters like these as well. Now, I did a video on filters and camera settings a few weeks ago, where I show how you can go into the Pro camera settings on the Mini 3, fix certain values like the ISO, shutter speed or white balance. And it is a really, really useful little video showing you how to get the very most out of manual Pro mode. And again, as ever, I'll put a little link to it up there. But look, this new update to the Mini 3 means you can now choose an auto setting even when you're in full manual Pro mode, which I know probably sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but it actually makes really good sense. If you go into Pro mode by tapping the button bottom right, you can see how you can change all of the camera parameters manually. On the left, you've got the white balance along with some other values, depending on whether you're in camera mode or video mode. But on the right, you've got the ability to change the ISO and the shutter speed. And this is where the new little auto functions, the auto buttons, appear, as you can see here. The whole idea of manual Pro mode is that you can set the parameters to precisely the value you want, which, for instance, lets you set the exposure when you're pitching up from ground to sky and you want to stop the picture going dark when the bright sky suddenly comes into the picture. If you're in auto mode, everything would suddenly go automatically dark, but fixing it in Pro mode keeps it all the same. But the issue until now was that you had to set all of the parameters manually, which made using Pro mode a little bit more complicated and time consuming than it actually needed to be. And you can see here that when I first clicked into Pro mode this morning, the screen went white because obviously the last time I was in Pro mode, it was obviously probably a late sunset and I had the exposure right up. So again, it's a bit of a pain. But now after this week's update, I can choose to leave ISO and or shutter speed on automatic, even in Pro mode. And this makes all the difference. So I can choose to just set 1 or 2 of the parameters manually, leaving all the others to automatically adjust themselves. Take white balance. This is actually why I went into Pro mode this morning. Adjusting white balance is a classic, easy way to make sunrises and sunsets look even redder and warmer. So now, if I want to do that, I can now tick the auto button on ISO and shutter speed so that I don't have to worry about them whilst I'm playing around with the white balance. And this really comes into play when you use ND filters as well. Again, I have done a video on how using these ND filters can bring you really dreamy, silky pictures. Again, as ever, I'll do a little link up to there when this is published. Now you can jump into Pro mode, lock the ISO to 100, which is normally the setting you want to leave it on, and crucially tick auto settings on the shutter speed and let the software do all the work for you. It'll work out the right exposure for whatever your conditions are, and regardless of the ND filter strength you're using, it will always get the exposure right, and that is making life a lot more simple. So that's it. That's actually all I wanted to explain. Super quick video today, as I said. I don't think you actually need to be told how to use master shots in portrait mode. I mean, that's the whole point of master shots, isn't it? They do everything for you. And now you can do them on the Mini 3 at least anyway in portrait mode, which is going to be great for TikTok and the like. But it is easy to skip over some of these updates, and shutter speed and ISO priority do not sound very interesting. And if you don't know how they work, then you'd skip over them and forget about them. But now you do know how they work. So look, I was very lucky with the weather this morning. Brilliant sunrise, amazing mists moving across in a brisk breeze, which actually I think is quite rare. You don't normally get mist when it's breezy. But on that, as ever, I'll ask for a little quick thumbs up from you to help the video along. And I will leave you happily floating above the English countryside on what really was a very lovely, lovely sunrise this morning. So as ever, until next time, have fun, happy flying.